Go through them briefly. We have the role played by the philosophers. When we talk about the French philosophers, these were the intellectuals, these were the great thinkers, these were the people who wrote different literatures that were read by different people. Philosophers like Rousseau, Voltaire, Montesquieu, we have Diderot, we have many other philosophers. Philosophers, these are the great thinkers who acted as political analysts. All together, they acted as political analysts. They analyzed the political structures of France, and they were able to point out the weak points in the political sectors of France. For example, Voltaire wrote 70 essays. And in his 70 essays, he was criticizing the government. In his 70 essays, he was pointing at those areas that the government had failed altogether, that the monarchy had failed. These philosophers wrote about the, education system, they wrote about the health system, they wrote about the judicial system, whereby we had feudal courts, but they were not working. They also even said that the gladiators were the people drumming and at the same time dancing. That means that they are the ones in charge. So philosophers wrote essays, and these essays, they were trying to expose the weaknesses of the Bourbon monarchy. But at the end of the day, people who bought these essays and read them, for example, magazines, newspapers, and etc., they got to know about the weaknesses of the Bourbon monarchy. And therefore, the philosophers are given credit for having opened the mind of the people, showing them what they should do. So since these philosophers were there, they were also helped by the encyclopedists. What the encyclopedists did is to summarize what philosophers wrote. Philosophers wrote a number of things, and the encyclopedists came up and summarized them, making it easy. So like when I write a textbook of history to sell, and another person comes, picks my book and makes out a pamphlet, that person is this time around the encyclopedist. And the person who wrote the book is the author, whom we give a credit of being the author, and that one is taken to be the philosopher. So philosophers wrote different essays, and then encyclopedists summarized them, giving people the hidden meaning of the written documents. Let us look at different philosophers here briefly. We have Montesquieu or Montesquieu. Montesquieu is one of the French philosophers that wrote about the ruling monarchy. So since he was a lawyer, he got the opportunity to review the work of the working conditions of various countries. Altogether, this man was a lawyer. He was able to revise, he was able to explore, he moved into different countries, and he was able now to get a room for comparison. He moved to different countries, and he was able now to get a chance of writing something about the Bourbon monarchy, because he had evidence. It's like when a day comes and I go to America, and I go to China, and I go to Russia, and I come back and I write history about my country. That means I will have an inspirational point. I will have a point where I base my writings. So philosophers like Montesquieu in 1689 to 1775, he was able to explore, to move to different areas, gathering information, comparing things, and then after comparing, he made a report which he wrote and people read it. And in his report, he was trying to show people how weak France was, how dictatorial was Bourbon monarchy, and therefore calling upon the French masses to fight, to join forces to put away, to scoop out the ruling monarchy. So this this champion, this great work that he was done by Montequies of moving from one area, sprint of laws, it made him to write about laws of France, and also in his writings, he exposed the weaknesses of the judicial system. He also wrote in his books, or in his letters, or in his writings, some information concerning about the British parliamentary system, how Britain was organized, and therefore he encouraged the masses in France also to demand the same judicial system in Britain, the same parliamentary structures of Britain. So a lot of things were exposed by the philosophers that also opened the minds of the people. The people of France were stuck, had been imprisoned, their minds had been imprisoned in one room. So these Baudelaires and the friends, they came as the keys to open the minds, to open the eyes of the French masses, putting them in a position of knowing what is good and what is bad, of exposing them to them the need to have what we call political, social, and economic independence. So that's how this man contributed to the outbreak of the 1789 French Revolution. Voltaire was the most commonly brilliant, brave, wise philosophers or intellectual in the history of Europe. By 1692 to 1778, in his work, he criticized the institutions of his time in uncertain terms. Philosopher Baudelaire criticized the institutions of the Bourbon monarchy. He criticized the way these people are handling matters. He criticized the government, criticized the parliament or the estate. So he wrote all his criticization and he piled it in one thing, and then people read, and they got to know how bad the Bourbon monarchy was, and at the end of the day it led to the revolution. After people reading through it, we have Losieux, among others, also wrote different essays condemning the way the monarch was, the Bourbons were handling things and the clergies. So we have a number of things here that caused the outbreak of the 1789 French Revolution. We have the administration system was also unfair. And when we talk about the administration system here, we are trying to show you the unfairness in the courts of law, whereby if you look at the feudal courts, they were almost dominated by the ruling government. There are people's tears, people's cries, people's claims were not always listened to, since they are the same people who were in charge at the same time doing the wrong. So this made people to fail, even get where to report their cases. So there are many causes. We have the American War of Independence and the Irish experience. We have the financial skyrocketing crisis. We have the role played by the nobles and the clergy, as we see down there, and then we have the impact of the natural calamities like earthquake, which affected more the farmers, and things tend to be more expensive because time for farming became very complicated, and it became a challenging point for the for the peasants, who later on thought of a revolution, and then they thought that through the revolution our problems will be solved, hence making the revolution of 1789 inevitable. Among other causes, let me stop from here. You can sit down. There are many causes. We have the National Assembly. We have the storming of Bastille Prison, which was the greatest fear. It was 14th July 1789. We have the calling of the Esther General Meeting. We have the National Convention, 1922. We have, we've seen the skyrocketing financial crisis. We have what we call the role played by the middle class, and among other causes. When we come back, we shall look at the second thing apart from the 1789 French Revolution. Have to submit from here. Have a good day.